Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we're talking about the midfield problem that Erik ten Hag currently has. And it's actually a very different problem to what he faced, let's say, 7 or 8 days ago. 7 or 8 days ago, we were talking about extremely limited options in the midfield, Ten Hag having his hands tied behind his back, and basically no option with what he could do with the midfield in particular. Now, suddenly that's changed. You've got these 4 players all now suddenly available, and this doesn't even take into consideration someone like Christian Eriksen, who's had a good start to the season, and also Hannibal, who we were talking about yesterday, playing really well at the moment. But I think most people would agree these are probably the 4 main midfielders. Of course, 3 of them signed by Erik ten Hag himself, and the other made captain by Erik ten Hag. It feels like these are the 4 players which Ten Hag really likes in his midfield. But there aren't that many formations, or certainly not optimal formations, which actually allow you to get 4 midfielders into the side, especially not when your 4 midfielders profile in the way that these 4 do. However, I do think that Ten Hag has some solutions. I think there are a few different ways that Ten Hag could line the team up to get these 4 players into the team. So basically, we're going to look at 3 different structures or setups that he could use. So let's get into it.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, jerseyfifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
So the first formation is pretty obvious. How do you get 4 central midfielders onto the same pitch? You play one of the only formations in football which has 4 central midfielders. Seems pretty obvious to me. The 4-4-2 diamond. Sofian Amrabat, as the 6, Casemiro and Mason Mount as the 2 8s, and then Bruno Fernandes kind of at the tip of the diamond as the chief creator, the creative hub for the team. How would this work? Well, we won't go too in detail on this because we spoke about the 4-4-2 diamond on several occasions recently. What it allows you to do is really crowd the centre of the pitch and get players nice and close to each other, which can often allow for quick combination play. It also allows you to overload in these areas, so, again, probably the main hub of the football pitch. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have more players here than what the opposition do if you use the diamond shape, allowing you to outnumber but also overrun really the opposition, especially when you've got energetic players like Sofian Amrabat, Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes in the side. However, there is one major problem with this formation, and that is the real lack of width, both in and out of possession. We saw this was a real problem for United against Brighton the other week. When they used the diamond, Brighton found it far too easy to play out from the back using the width because United just didn't have players in those areas. However, if we were to swap, for example, Casemiro and Amrabat around like this, could we see that problem being slightly addressed? Because now when the ball goes wide into these areas, you've got Mason Mount here rather than Scott McTominay, and Amrabat here rather than Christian Eriksen, which instantly is going to give you a lot more ground coverage, but also a lot more dual winning ability, a lot more energy off the ball. That could be a way in which United could address some of the problems. In terms of how it works in possession, we could maybe see Marcus Rashford given a free roam, perhaps Reguilon at left back pushing forward, maybe Dalot having a deeper role, Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes kind of rotating down this side. It's definitely a formation which could allow United to play with these 4 central players. In fact, I also just thought of another one literally off the top of my head as well, and that's the 4-2-2 shape. With, again, Rasmus Højlund and Rashford being the front 2, could we see a 4-2-2 shape which looks something a little bit like this? Now, again, you've got the 4 central midfielders on the pitch. All 4 of those key players are in the starting 11, which Ten Hag could want. However, it gives you a little bit more natural width because of these 2 players being high in the half space rather than a pivot and a 10 position. It does give you a bit more natural width. However, it still gives you the potential and the ability, if you wish to do so, to overload central areas because these players can move inside. Now, if you were to use this sort of structure, you'd probably want Amrabat and Casemiro to both play pretty deep, with the 2 fullbacks overlapping, giving you a shape which looks something a little bit like this, kind of a 2-2-4-2 shape. Could this shape work for United? Like I said, I literally only just thought of it, so it's not something I've thought about too much. I think it could work on paper. It'd be interesting to see if Erik ten Hag would experiment with it. However, I think the 4-4-2 diamond is the more likely shape than this one. I don't think this is that likely because we haven't really seen any examples of it. However, there is another shape which we have seen an example of, which would allow United to get all 4 of these players onto the pitch without actually playing in a diamond. So how could you do that? Well, you play in more of a 4-2-3-1 shape. But what we're going to do is move Rashford, so rather than being up front, he's now going to go to the left wing. We're using exactly the same starting 11, we're just moving the positions of a few players. Could you now go to a 4-2-3-1 like this, with Amrabat and Casemiro as your double pivot, Bruno Fernandes in the 10, Mason Mount on the right wing? Or, of course, they could swap round like this. Now, again, you've got these 4 players all on the pitch, 4 very important players. Casemiro's experience, Amrabat's ball-winning ability and energy, but also composure on the ball, the creativity of Bruno Fernandes, and the pressing ability and the ball-carrying ability of Mason Mount. You're making sure to get all of these strengths into the team. Now, how would it work from a structural point of view? How would United attack? Because we know that Bruno Fernandes on the far right isn't really optimal for this side. So you probably would want to see Bruno Fernandes coming inside into the half space a bit more, which would probably therefore ask Dalot to push forward. Does this work with the rest of the United defence? It probably means that you now tuck the left back a little bit deeper, which perhaps doesn't suit Reguilon. Perhaps Lisandro Martinez could eventually come back and play this sort of role. Luke Shaw definitely could as well. This could be a shape which works for United. We saw Dalot attack in the space really well the other day, starting from a deeper right-back position, but then eventually overlapping into space. Actually worked really well the other night in the Carabao Cup. So the 4-2-3-1 shape, with one of these central players actually playing out wide, but then still moving into a more central position, is definitely another solution which United could use. Another solution is to stick with the 4-2-3-1 shape, or even adapt the shape to more of a 4-3-3 if you like, but actually completely change the personnel. And actually, by doing this, you can get a more attacking lineup, because what we're actually going to do in this formation, or this setup next, is take Reguilon out and bring either Facundo Pellistri or Garnacho in on the right wing. So how does this work? Well, what we're going to do is move Sofian Amrabat to left back, of course, where he made his debut so well the other night and played really well. How would this structure work? Well, now we've got, let's say, Garnacho on the right wing. So we're in a 4-3-3 formation. We've got Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount as our midfield 3. Of course, that same midfield 3 which started the season, seemingly Ten Hag's favourite midfield 3. I've also just realised we've got Rasmus Højlund with the wrong number, which seems to annoy people. Apologies for that. However, the problem with this shape is you look at it and say, we've got this midfield 3 which started the season, and that start of the season weren't very good. However, if we could invert Amrabat inside from left back, as we saw him doing in midweek, we're going to ask Dalot now to play a slightly deeper position. This now starts to look like a really, really optimal setup in possession. Because now we've got a 3-2-4-1 shape, of course a shape used by a lot of big teams in world football at the moment. It provides you with the base of 3 to outnumber and overwhelm most of the first phase. There's also ball playing ability here with Diogo Dalot. Rafael Varane's a good ball carrier. Harry Maguire, who looks set to keep his place in the team at the moment with Lisandro Martinez out injured and Lindelof out of form. Could Maguire get some game time here? We'll have to see. But Amrabat inverting alongside Casemiro is really going to take away some of the responsibility on Casemiro to build the play, which just doesn't suit him. By taking away some of that responsibility, you kind of free him up a bit, allow him to push a bit further forward and play much better, really. And it almost becomes a 3-4-3 diamond. And we know that playing this sort of role really suited Casemiro the other day. Is this something that United could do on a more regular basis? Go for this sort of system, this sort of setup, where Amrabat's going to play from left back, Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount are your midfield. But actually, Amrabat's going to end up as your pivot. Now you've got this diamond in the midfield, and this is quite a nice blend. You've got the ball-winning ability, the muscle, the physique of Casemiro, but also he's got that creative freedom in the final third without being asked to really dictate the play. You've got Amrabat, who's going to cover a lot of ground out of possession, but on the ball he's going to slow things down, keep the ball for your side. You've got Mason Mount, who is that one player in the squad who can carry the ball forward and beat a man in the midfield. And then we've got Bruno Fernandes, dead centre in the middle of the pitch where he can get heavily involved in the play and make stuff happen. Looks quite nice. You've also got plenty of threat out wide with Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho, and also Rasmus Højlund through the middle. It looks like a pretty good solution to me. It'll be interesting to see which solution Ten Hag will use, or whether or not he'll even attempt to get all 4 of these into the team. Now, there's a chance he won't this weekend, because we know that Amrabat is only just returning to fitness, and the same for Mason Mount as well. So perhaps these are solutions more for next weekend, moving forward. But certainly I think it will be in Ten Hag's mind. Can he get all 4 of these players on the pitch at the same time? Because whilst they all have their flaws, they certainly all have their qualities as well, which Ten Hag seems to admire. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he's going to try and get a blend of all of them on the pitch. I do like the idea of this being a potential solution where Amrabat is technically our left back, but he's going to invert into the midfield. Of course, no matter what the shape is, you're going to see plenty of rotations. And the other thing you will have noticed in this video is that actually the formation isn't that important, because in every formation, we're ending up with a pretty similar setup. So it's actually more about the positioning and the positional play of the players on the pitch, more so than the actual formation, which is quite interesting to see as well. But I'm just interested to see and intrigued, really, to try and figure out what Ten Hag is going to do moving forward. It'll be different even when someone like Luke Shaw and Lisandro Martinez come back from injury, because those are two players as well, which you would try and get into this side. But suddenly it doesn't look like there's a clear path into the side for them, apart from one of them in the place of Harry Maguire. So again, it's an interesting problem which Ten Hag might start to face. But I tell you what, it might be a problem, but I bet it's a problem that he would rather have than a problem that he's had so far this season of not having enough players available. Suddenly he has midfield options. There's these four, there's Scott McTominay, there's Christian Eriksen, there's Hannibal, Kobe Mainu eventually returning from injury, someone like Dan Gore, for example, given his debut the other night. Suddenly there's options for Erik Ten Hag, and it'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward. But let me know what system you prefer the most. So to go through them again, we've got the 4-4-2 diamond, where you would see Sofian Amrabat as the 6, Casemiro and Mason Mount as the 2-8s, with Bruno Fernandes at the tip of the diamond, although Casemiro and Amrabat could easily swap. We then got the 4-2-3-1 shape, with Amrabat and Casemiro in our double pivot, Bruno Fernandes or Mason Mount in the 10 spot, with the other one on the right wing. You've got the 4-2-2-2, with again Casemiro and Sofian Amrabat kind of the double pivot, holding the midfield together, allowing Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount to push higher, but also a little bit wider at times. Or the 4-3-3/4-2-3-1 solution, but with Sofian Amrabat at left back, which ends up looking a little bit like this. Let me know which of the systems you prefer the most. I think, particularly in games which United think they will dominate possession, I would really like to see this approach. Perhaps in the so-called tougher games, you would switch to one of the other approaches, get an extra defender in the side, a more natural left back, and put Amrabat in the midfield. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know which solution you prefer the most, and also let me know if you have any other ideas of how Ten Hag can get all four of these into his side. But like I said, it's really difficult to talk today, a much better problem to have than the problems that United have had so far this season. So it's actually quite refreshing to talk about, which is why I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too, but apart from that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.